Hello, everyone. Welcome back to When Shooting's Life podcast, episode 9. I'm your host, Kue Lee, with my co-host, Khang. Today, we have a very special guest. He is a grandmaster level shooter in USPSA, and he goes by the name of Colin Maxon. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good, good.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Definitely. All right. So before we officially start this podcast, we like to ask our guests 5 random questions. So you don't have to go into details. You could just give out a short answer. Are you
Sure.
ready?
Go ahead.
All right. First question is, do you think dinosaur was fake?
Do I think dinosaurs were fake?
Yeah.
No.
Why do you think so? Why do you think it's real?
Why do I think it's real? There's a lot of evidence of fossils and a lot of some of our resources that we have, and we've stumbled upon fossils, and I think we just know. And I grew up with Jurassic Park, so there's no way they're fake.
Just just a warning, Koo sits on the toilet and he just like thinks of like the five most random things.
That's okay. That's when man does our most profound thinking, right?
He doesn't tell me what they are either, so they're always a surprise for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Would you rather be a vampire or werewolf?
Hmm. Vampire.
Gary? I'm just kidding. I'm just
I,
kidding.
I think that's the right call.
Yeah.
I think that's the right call.
All right. All right. All
And
right. Next.
it's like you get the best of both worlds, but you'd still be human enough to kind of be in control of things and not just a wild animal.
But then you got to drink blood, though. Like, you always got to kill someone.
Yeah, but I would like it if I was a vampire. So it would
Yeah. Plus the ladies find that hot.
yeah, they do.
That
Yeah,
is
that's
true.
true.
That is true. Okay. I guess it's not gay then.
The werewolves are gay now.
All right. All right, next one. If an alien reveals itself to you and is stuck on Earth, would you tell the government for $1 billion or let the alien live with you?
I wouldn't tell them.
Nice, nice. Me too.
No.
All
You
right.
can't just throw the number $1 billion out there. That like wrecks the equation.
A
No.
billion dollar.
Hopefully it'd be a mutual thing where
Yeah.
they can learn something from me, but more importantly, maybe I can learn something from them, and knowledge is worth more than that.
I agree with that. All
Cool.
right,
The
next.
government already knows about the aliens, so they're not going to
They
give you diddly
yeah,
squat.
yeah. There's no list.
You get to live at Area 51 now.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, so the next one is have dinner with Kim Jong-un or P. Diddy at his house.
Oh man. Uh, well, I think given just recent events, I'd have to pick Kim.
All right.
I'd have to pick Kim. At least I'd have a yeah. With
Uh,
that, yeah, I'd
At
pick
least you
Kim.
know your booty hole will be saved.
Well, I think I'd have a better fighting chance against Kim.
A lot less baby oil.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Plus, who knows? He might end up being cool. Like what was that movie?
The dictator?
Yeah, the
Oh
Dick.
yeah.
Yeah, was that Seth Rogen and No,
Yep.
no, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Seth Rogen, James Franco,
Yeah,
Yep, two of them.
I
yeah,
forgot the Korean dude's name.
yeah.
Something
That
Park.
that he
Jim.
might end up turning out to be a fun time.
The Korean dude is Jim from The Office. All right. Inside
Randall
joke.
Park. Randall
Yeah.
Park. We all know the office joke.
Oh yeah.
All right, last one. Is it considered cheating if you have another girlfriend, but you can only see her when you're dreaming and you remember every little details of your dream with her?
I would say no, but there's a lot of females I know that would say otherwise.
Okay.
Does my wife know?
Yes, yes, yep. That famous, what am I in trouble for? What I do? I had a dream you were having an affair. It's like, well, I wasn't.
But then imagine if your dream girlfriend cheated on you and now you're all depressed in the real world. and then your wife will be asking like, why you're always depressed? What are you gonna say?
What are you gonna say? My dream girlfriend's cheating on
She
me.
Okay. All
I think I got bigger problems
Yeah.
if that's the if that's the I'm in the Matrix or in that movie Inception or something like that. I've got real problems then.
Cool, you put a lot of thought into this dream girlfriend scenario. Yeah,
Yes,
you have a confession for us.
maybe I do, but not that'll be for the other podcast.
The other one, yeah.
Okay. Well, all right, that's the five random question. So Colin, for those who doesn't know you, can you give us a little bit background about yourself?
Sure. So I started in USPSA towards the end of, I would say officially, I really started going to weekly matches in 2018. Started out in limited, and I got my master's division classification in limited, and then they're just went into open. Wasn't enough competition in limited for me to stay there, and then went to open, and then last or 2 weeks ago, I just made grandmaster in open. So pretty excited about that. And I started my firearms background. My family never, we weren't a hunting family. I did a lot of NRA Youth 22 rifle sharpshooter stuff, and then got into the USPSA stuff when I moved to Rochester.
All right.
And oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna wait for you to
No,
finish.
and I was just kind of saying then my day job, I'm a mortician, funeral director. I own a funeral home now. I've been a funeral director for over 16 years, and pretty much I started when I was 16. I
Wow.
don't have family in it. Just started young, knew some owners, and started working for them, and I never left the profession.
Really quick, before you continue, so we kind of like to target our podcast towards a lot of our audiences. They're more new to shooting, and a lot of them, they want to get into competition. They're still learning about it. Can you kind of explain the difference? You're talking about the limited class versus like open class, and
Sure.
even if you want to talk a little bit about like carry optics, this is probably one of the most popular right now.
Yeah.
What are those different classes, and what is the difference in between shooting them?
I would say so for limited, you can run a single action type um, firearm, your 2011, or your striker fired pistols, but it's a kind of it's the race car division of the iron sights is kind of how I like to describe it. And shooting, I still really enjoy shooting limited. I would probably still be there if there was more other competitors shooting that. And it's really neat to go fast with iron sights. And but it's also very challenging. So it's a little rewarding with that, being able to shoot well and keep up with some of the dot people, but you're using an iron sight. And shooting that, I have not shot carry optics or I've not shot any other divisions aside from limited and open. I guess I dabbled in PCC just for fun a couple times, which was that was different. But and then kind of
Really quick, explain PCC.
So PCC would be your pistol caliber carbine, your AR-15 platforms chambered in 9 millimeter, and it's the rifle division of USPSA, and it's very different moving around a course of fire with a rifle. The movement is very different. You've a lot more mass in what you're shooting to move around. It's unique. It definitely has a place, and it's kind of not a division I'm super interested in. I find it much easier to shoot the platform than a pistol, just given you've got a lot more points of contact with the rifle, and you can really take those farther shots faster than you can with the pistol. So I don't think there's as much that goes into it, but not to diminish the people that are really good at it. But pistol's just a very different. It's much harder to learn and master the pistol than it is a rifle.
Would you say that open division is something that you recommend for like beginners to get into, or what are some of your thoughts about open division?
I've thought about this, and I have conflicting views even with myself about that. On one hand, I would say no, it's not a good division to start in, because I don't because there's certain things that you won't get fundamentally. Your stage plans can be a little bit more aggressive. You're not having to reload as often, so there's just some things you don't have to be as conscious about, like other divisions, single stack being one of them, or revo, even production. You've really got to plan your stages around. Your stages are going to revolve much more around where you're going to reload, as opposed to maybe other things. And open, I'm looking more for things like being able to move on targets, where guys that have to reload more often are probably looking for those gaps where, okay, this gap I can hit my reload because I won't be doing anything else, and I'm not going to get penalized for doing like a standing reload and then losing that time that way, where I'm not moving actively getting to the next position. But then on the other hand, open does open the realm of, I think June Kim had a take on this, if I'm not mistaken, where he kind of thinks open is a good division to start in, because you can focus more on the fundamentals of stage planning and knowing what going fast feels like. Because for me, going fast is not, it's a feeling more than it is the ability to do it. You have to experience it and become comfortable with it to do it well. And there's no better division to do that than open. So the thought is if you can master that feeling in that open division, being able to take that feeling and translate it to other divisions should work out better for you, in the long run. So I still would probably say no, it's not the division I would start people in. Um, but if somebody's got an unlimited budget and they're okay dropping some coin on a good open gun, go for it.
I'm
But
kind of hijack
go ahead.
I'm kind of hijacking Ku's section a little bit for his questions, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. So generally with open is going to be it's the major power factor, right? So
Right.
you're going to be shooting and you're going to be getting not necessarily more points, but less penalties.
Well,
So like
yeah,
a C,
you get more points for non-alpha hits. So
right? So
you're anything outside the alpha zone, you're not
mm,
losing as many points to a Charlie hit as you would in minor scoring. So you've got everything. That gun is like the cheat code of USPSA. Everything is supposed to make you a better shooter. You've got your compensator, you've got a heavy metal gun, you've got those popple holes to help distribute gases and just make that gun run flat. Your dot is non-reciprocating, so it's mounted to the frame, as opposed to, so that slide just rides under the dot. So you've got the advantage of that dot being a little bit more still and not moving with the slide, which is that's a big advantage too. And then, if you've got the brand new MBX mags with their new spring and follower, you can start you can start a stage with 30 in your mag and one in the chamber.
wow.
You can start at 31 rounds, and really, there's a lot of times where if I came up to a 28 or 29 round stage before, I wouldn't even think about it. I'd just be like, oh, it's too close to 30. I'm going to reload. And now, you can really balance out the decision of how difficult the targets are. If there's steel, you may need a plan for it. But if it's all paper, it's like, man, just rip it. And if you throw a couple makeups, who cares? You've got 31.
So generally, from what I understand, is that right? So you're going to get a little bit more points because you're shooting the major power factor, whereas most people are going to be shooting 9 millimeter and they're going to be
Right.
shooting minor power factor. So a
Yep.
little bit less points if you're not getting all alphas.
Yep.
The guns are generally going to shoot a little bit flatter because they're got these big compensators on them. You're talking
Right.
about so for those who didn't understand that part. So
Yeah.
for what we typically see now is slide mounted optics. So as you're firing, the actual dot itself is moving as the slide is cycling, but on a open gun, the slides the optic is going to be mounted to the frame, so the optic doesn't move. So the
Yeah.
gun's easier to shoot. Oh yeah, exactly,
Yep.
perfect,
Yeah.
just like
So,
that.
you've got your popple holes, your
Mhm.
compensator. That slide is reciprocating under the frame because it's mounted right here to the frame of the gun. So it just stays in place the whole time. And you've got gas pedals, which if you use this correctly, it really is just a rest. You know, you'll find that the more pressure you put into these, your shots are going to dip. I think a lot of people misuse them in the sense of they put more pressure into it than they should, rather than it just being a rest there for your thumb, and more of an engagement point than an actual pushing into the gun and running it hard. So yeah, I mean, you've got ginormous mag wells. If you miss your reload, you really botched it up, kind of thing. There's like no excuses why you don't hit your reloads well. And yeah, other than that, it's 2011. But those the frame mounted optic, your compensator, you're getting to shoot major power factor, and you've got big mags. So there's a lot of advantages there over to shooting minor. So it's still really important to shoot alphas though, with even in major. I kind of look at deltas. I try to look at shooting deltas like mics.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So essentially, more points. The guns are easier to shoot. They carry more ammo, so there's less
Yeah.
reloads. And so essentially, you've got all the advantages. I guess the major disadvantage is that to be competitive in open, I mean, you're probably looking at like a what, $8,000 to $10,000 gun, and you probably need like at least two of them.
Yeah, 8 to 10,000, some really big coin. You're talking
Hmm.
Atlas Infinity
Hmm.
prices there, but there's some really good custom builders that my the guy that built my open gun and then my limited optics gun I just got is Tactical Steel Custom, and with the optic I was sub 6,000 for the open
Wow.
gun, and he hand fits everything too. So it's not like he's taking a Prodigy or something and
Hmm.
Frankensteining the parts and making it out of that. I mean, they're built to be an open gun from the get go. So it's not as bad. I don't have a backup gun for this yet. I'll probably do that next year. With it only being 2 years old, I'm probably safe,
Hmm.
hopefully for the most part, before things start to happen. What will probably happen first is an extractor will break before the slide cracks or anything. So I feel okay shooting another full year and open without having a backup gun. And backup guns, I think I have a very controversial take on backup guns. I kind of feel like sometimes they're a waste because
Hmm.
Ooh.
the
I
gun
agree.
the gun is going to break. When's it going to break? While you're shooting it. And if you're lucky enough, it'll break at the end of the stage. It probably won't, though. It's going to break somewhere towards the beginning or through the middle of the stage, which is going to result in a big fat zero on that stage. And when you're competing for a top 10 spot, a top or a high overall win,
Hmm.
you take a zero on a stage, it's over. And some people will view that as, oh, you're quitting and you just don't want to finish the match. But it's like, well, no, I'm not quitting, but I'm not now going to burn and waste
Hmm.
ammo and resources now shooting this match, because a match, in my opinion, a major match is not a place to learn and try new things and train. You should have done that at local matches. You should have done it at home and dry fire. That's your practicing. You're there to win matches. So, to some degree, I kind of feel like these guys overdo it when they've got backup guns. I
Hmm.
have backup parts because more than likely, again,
Hmm.
I so the guy that made my gun, he David, I asked him to fit another extractor to that gun. So if I'm at a match and the extractor breaks, I've got that part to fit to put right back in, and I would still shoot the rest of the match. But I just
Mm.
have the feeling if you have a catastrophic failure and your gun is no longer able to shoot, you know what, you just take the L, you pack up and you go
Hmm.
home, or you stick around with your buddies and you're just if you're at a major, you're just the ultimate steel resetter guy. And I enjoy being with the people in the sport enough that if even if I'm not shooting, I'll still enjoy my time. But it's like, man, I can't justify at least right now. It's not my livelihood doesn't depend on shooting,
Hmm.
so I just can't justify having these backup guns that are this
Hmm.
expensive for a match. And maybe if USPSA became big enough to the point to where winning matches there was a monetary value to it, like golf, where they've got a purse. Well, okay, now that's a different story, but this is still very much a spectator sport. It's an amateur sport. Truly, there's really no. There's a lot of people that say they're professional shooters, but until the day that you're signing some big six-figure contracts, nobody's a pro shooter. We're all doing this for fun.
We had this conversation with Billy Barton. He was telling us about Eric Graffel. So for those of
Yeah,
you guys don't know who Eric Graffel is, so
he's the
Eric Graffel,
exception to the rule.
he is the exception to the rule. He is generally regarded as like the top pistol shooter in the world, and he
Yeah.
pretty much has an unlimited ammo budget, and he is
Oh yeah.
whereas most people are they may be full-time shooters, but they're teaching classes to pay for their budgets, but
Right.
he is a full-time athlete in the realm of like
Yes.
Olympians where that's all they do
Correct.
is train, and all he does is he just
Yeah.
shoots.
Yep. No, he is the only exception to the rule because I had heard when he preps for major matches,
Mm.
I mean he shoots upwards of 30 or more thousand rounds in that month leading up to the I might shoot that in a year. Or not. So he's the exception to the rule. For whatever reason, his type of athlete status hasn't made it to USPSA American competitors. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the money's just not there. It's kind of like the WNBA. The money's just not there yet. You can't you can't pay players what you're not bringing in. And and I don't know I don't know if there's anybody in USPSA right now that's so influential that their sponsorship to a gun company is going to increase their sales by big enough margins that that it justifies to pay them big dollars. I don't know what Eric makes, but to his ammo, he's got an unlimited resource to ammo. And yeah, he'd be the one exception to the rule. But
I
like,
I don't see why 6 Hour couldn't do that for like Max Michelle. They
well,
have enough defense
but
contracts.
Max does work for Sig Sauer,
Hmm.
so I mean he makes a good living with Sig Sauer, but at the same time he's when they say jump and he's got to say how high, he's got to be
Hmm.
at their beck and call. And there's definitely there's a price you pay with having sponsorship. It is not all glamour, and it's not for everybody. If you've got to be available to do whatever they ask you to do, and that's kind of the nature of the beast. And some people like me, I'd rather have my freedom from that and pay to play.
Oh, definitely, definitely. That's my own personal little thing is I don't take sponsors, even though some smaller companies have asked me for sponsorships, but I always kind of turn them
Yeah,
down.
yeah. Now, like there's some like AT3 Tactical for
Mm.
example. I'm sponsored by them, and it's a very but it's a very easy
Hmm.
relationship. you get a discount code for some products that we have, and that can be helpful. And in return, what I have to put into it isn't so extensive that it's unrealistic. Make sure you tag us sometimes in social media. So with some of the smaller things, that's okay. But you want to get sponsored by CZ or a gun company like that, and you may have to sit at their booth after a match. And a lot of us have jobs to get back to, and we don't have the time to do that. So it's like if you don't directly work for that company,
Mm-hmm.
it could be very difficult to justify taking a sponsorship.
I'm sorry. I stole
No,
your segment. Go ahead with your
no,
questions.
all good, man. All good. Oh well, first, what is the make model of your open gun?
Um, so it's a tactical steel custom, and it's a 5-inch 2011 style handgun. I wanted to stay with the full. You kind of have three different options when you have an open gun. You've got your full length, which is your
Actually,
five
real quick,
inch.
are those guys local to Minnesota or were those guys based out of?
No, Tactical Steel Customs out of Missouri.
Ah,
So
okay.
he's not. They're not far away,
Mhm.
but not local. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but there's nobody in Minnesota that builds custom 2011s. Um, I think there used to be. I think his name used to be Grunhauser. He used to be, but he's not that I'm aware of not making guns right now. So you've got your full length open guns, and then you've got middies, which is just a quarter inch shorter, and then you've got shorties. And a lot of guys do like to run the middies. They're supposed to be faster slide cycling, but I the amount of abuse that the gun takes from just losing that quarter of an inch, you wouldn't think is a big deal, but it ends up being a big deal. And I don't think the abuse the gun has to take for that quarter inch of slight, maybe a fasting cycle slide is worth abusing the gun more. So I like the way the 5 inches shoot, and so I stayed with the 5 inch full length dust cover. But there's a lot of options you can play with an open gun. Do you want two popple holes? Do you want no popple holes? There's a lot of people that don't want them. And do you want four? So there's just a lot. There's a lot of, and that's kind of part of what's fun about the sport. You can kind of fine tune these things to things you like, and it's like getting into golf or modifying cars and drag racing. You can dump a lot of money into this stuff.
Oh, I was gonna say that's a very interesting hot take that you don't have a backup because I know that a lot of the series competitors, most of them will have a clone of their
They will.
competition gun. So they'll have the training gun, which is what they shoot all the ammo with, and then they'll have the competition gun, which is
Yeah.
a much lower round count.
Yep, they do. And it still is a hot take for me.
Hmm.
I if those guys want to do that, all power to them. But my view, it's like I want to be shooting the gun during the
Hmm.
match that I'm also practicing with, because they might be identical guns,
Hmm.
but there could be slight
Yeah.
characteristics of something. It can't be a perfect replica. So I just like, it's a confidence thing for me, knowing that the gun I have in my hand is the gun that I just did a sub 2 second 25-yard bill drill with, and I don't have to think about anything. So it's more of a confidence thing for me. The less I have to worry about equipment, the better I'm going to perform.
All right, so do you think that you'll be able to shoot an open Glock gun as good as your open gun right now?
No.
All right. So, in your opinion, do you think if you're gonna shoot an open division, should we like shoot 2011 type of guns, or it could just be any gun?
I think that's like your only option, right? There's
Well,
not really
you
much
No?
you
else
could you could fit you could trick out a Glock
competitively.
Yeah.
or an M&P. There's compensators for all that stuff, but
Hmm.
you're not going to be able to run major power
Hmm.
factor in it. So there's your disadvantage. So you could trick it
Hmm.
out you could get the weight, compensator, magwell, frame mounted optic, but you're not going to be able to shoot major. Which, if you shoot alphas, it may, it's the more and more I continue in the sport, the more and more I feel major is an advantage. I don't think it's as big of an advantage as I used to think it was. Um, you've got there's just too many. When you look at major match results, there's a lot of guys that if you um, change there and like practice score competitor, sometimes I'll do it. I'll go, all right, I won, but would I have still won possibly had I been shooting minor? And it's like, okay, yeah, I would have. So I'm still shooting good enough alpha to Charlie ratio that I could have still won that division shooting minor. So, it's not as big of a deal to me as it used to be. I wouldn't be supposed to the hit factor or the power factor scale dropping a little bit. And if they just want to get rid of major completely, I don't think I'd be too upset about it. Because I'd still run an open gun. The advantages of the open gun would still be there. You might just have to lighten up your recoil spring to accommodate for the less gases and the minor power factor you're using, but I wouldn't be super upset if they got rid of major power factor.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people getting into the sport they don't really realize is that the gun doesn't really matter
No,
as much as you
no.
would think.
Yeah,
And
like when Kue asked me right now if I had a tricked out Glock, I would not
mhm.
right now I wouldn't be able to shoot it better. But if I had the time to practice with it, I could shoot that as well as I'm shooting this. You've got Brantley Merriam who came in second to Christian at Carry Optics Nationals shooting a Glock. And meanwhile, Shadow twos are predominantly the overwhelmingly used gun in Carry Optics division. So it can be done. You just again you've got to practice with what you're using.
And most of the time people reload for the open gun, right? And
Yeah,
okay, so I think this is just my opinion. I think they should get rid of major power factor because I shot an open gun one time and it felt like a 9 millimeter. So I
yeah,
feel like it's actually like cheating when they have a advantage on the points, but then the recoil still feels like a 9 millimeter. So
sure,
Pay to play.
yes, so
yep,
I think they should get rid of major. That's just my opinion though.
yeah. No, it does. It's shooting open psychologically has it takes a little bit to get used to because it sounds like a cannon.
Hmm.
If you just listen to the sound of an open gun going off, you'd be thinking, man, that thing must kick and recoil like a son of a gun. But then you get to shoot it and you're behind it and you're like, well, it didn't move. So
Yeah.
it's like a weird mind trick it's playing. It's like this thing sounds like it should be an absolute cannon, but it didn't move.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Cool, you're
But
gonna make a lot of uh $10,000 2011 owners very upset at you.
I would definitely be more interested in them bringing the major power factor scale down by 5, because running at 165 power factor would the abuse on your open gun would probably last. It would last much longer than having to most guys shooting open try and aim for that 170 power factor because you don't want to get to a match and go sub minor or not sub minor, but you don't want to go minor. Um, you want to stay competitive and but so going to 165 power factor would be a really nice change to see. And I'm not advocating for major to go away, but I don't think I would be as upset if it did because I don't think it's as big of an advantage as some people may think. If you're going into a match thinking I can only win this because of my major power factor scoring advantage, then I just think you've got the wrong mindset going into the match.
Christian, it looked like you were gonna ask
I
something.
I was gonna say something as soon as I was gonna say it, it slipped my mind. I one of the things I always tell people who are getting new into the sport, if you're going to a match and you see ammo on the ground, don't use it because
Yeah,
if somebody was shooting an open gun, it's the same 9 millimeter look. It'll
right.
probably chamber, but if it is what we call 9 major, which is really only for an open gun, there's a very strong chance it will destroy your gun. So that's why
Yeah.
you don't pick up random ammo off the
No,
ground.
no, don't pick up range brass. It isn't that
Hmm
18, 20 cents, or actually it's more like
hmm
35 cents now. It's not worth losing your booger finger,
hmm
and that would, at best, your gun is just broken. Worst case scenario is, then you've got actual bodily harm done
hmm
to your hand, and who knows, that could end your shooting career pretty quickly. You'd probably get one or two rounds out of your Glock or Smith and Wesson in a major round before they blew up. But I just wouldn't do it. I agree with you. Don't pick up range brass. Shoot what you came with, and let that be it.
Oh, actually, I remember what I was going to ask. So, what's the typical round count that you would normally see on like competition open 2011s before most people would start to experience either like parts breakage or maybe damage to frames and slides?
Um, so a couple guys that I know that have open guns have over 10,000, 15,000 rounds on them, and they haven't done anything other than they had an extractor break and they've just changed their springs. But in terms of the gun, there's no cracks. Mechanically, it's fine. Um, but then there's some guys that got 3,000 rounds into it and their slide cracked. So some of it probably has to do with the heat treating of the steel and the hardness of it. And the guys that build open guns now are smarter than, not that they were dumb, but they just know more about the platform now. So there's actually certain cuts when they're cutting the facing in the slide. They're purposefully not making certain cuts because they've figured out that it takes away too much material. Actually, I don't even know if you can see it in, on my open gun. Maybe you can. So my open gun has a tri-top cut. So the cut, it's cut on a as a tri-top, but right here, I don't know if you can see, they purposely leave then more
Mm.
material over the
Mhm.
chamber to just help account for the more pressure that's going to be going out of this gun. And you see, if you look at some of the older open gun 2011s, they take that tri-top cut all the way back, and it
Mm.
just takes too much material off the slide. And then that's where you'll see, most commonly you'll see the crack occur right here, right across the left side of the slide, and that's where you'd see it most likely. The most common places of cracks will occur there, and your compensators have gotten better. They're set screws, so it used to be a thing that they would come unscrewed after a while, and that's that's not really a thing anymore. And some companies are making their barrels. I think Bull Armory makes the compensator is a part of the barrel. So when they do all the machining, which is kind of actually neat in a way. But what else? And then 40s, 2011 40s used to crack slides a lot too because of the pressure, the higher pressures that round does. So again, I think they probably learned from the 40s calibers, leaving that extra material over the chamber there to just help beef that area up. So the likelihood of it cracking is less. But then again, to at the end of the day, this is the Formula One gun of USPSA. You kind of just have to be okay with something like that happening. So I mean, if you're wanting to get into a division and not have to worry about your gun, you want the longest longevity out of your firearms. Open is definitely not the division you'd want to be in. You want to be in carry optics or something where you're shooting minor, and you'll probably never crack a slide on your minor guns.
This episode just became the open division podcast,
Did it?
which is pretty fun because I'm learning a lot of stuff that I didn't really know either.
Sure.
All right, so this might be a stupid question, but question for both of you. So why is it always the extractor that's breaking? Like, and this goes out for like any gun. So why do you guys know why it's always the extractor?
My understanding is it's because it's constantly having to flex under that in the backstroke of the recoil and get that round ejected. So it's just taking the most abuse. But that's why on external extractors they don't break as much because you've got so this 2011 it's an internal extractor, and your external extractors have the ability to flex because then
Mm,
they've got a spring in the back. So they've got that ability to kind of flex out and kind of move with the brass as it's being ejected. Um, so those last longer. But I think also there's just not a lot of material there. When you look at it, an extractor, that what would I call it? That tooth, or yeah, what that tooth that
that claw,
grabs on
yep.
that's really thin. There's not a lot of metal there. So it's just one of those parts that it takes a lot of abuse, and it doesn't have a lot of material behind it to give it that longevity. But external extractors will run 20,000 plus rounds easily.
And I guess one of my thoughts, just coming from like the perspective of the audience, some people may be wondering, well, how is that fair with an open gun, which gets more points, has more ammo, and shoots flatter? How is that even remotely fair compared to other guys who are, maybe shooting just like a regular Glock? And it's just that's where the classes come in, or
Yes,
I'm sorry, the divisions come in, and so you're not really competing against the open guns. Although
right.
if you stack all the scores, the open guns will be at the top, but you're really
Yep.
competing against other guys with the same guns as you in your own division.
So I kind of have a controversial take on that too. I
Hmm.
think USPS. I think one of the dumbest things in USPSA is combined when you're looking at scores, a
Hmm.
combined category. It's stupid. I think it's because you are not shooting again. If I'm shooting open and you're shooting carry optics, we are not uh, competitors in the sense of we're not competing
Hmm.
against each other at all. I have certain advantages that you're not going to. So I think it's just really dumb to me when some people go, "Oh, I had the high overall win," and I'm guilty of it too. I've done it. I've said I've had the high overall win at the match, but I think it's dumb because it doesn't say anything. It's like in a way, it's like, well, okay, you kind of should have had the high overall win. You're a master, you're a grandmaster shooter, and you're shooting an open gun. Um, you should have had the high overall win, but it also doesn't say anything. I like the IPSC way of scoring where there are no combined results when you look at the any IPSC match, the world shoot and whatnot. It is only by division. You'll never know if this guy would have won high overall combined over everybody because it's just not available. It's you're shooting an open division. You're only competing and you're only going to get scored against other people shooting open. So I'd like to see that happen. I think combined results are dumb. They don't tell you anything, and I think it can make people feel like they're a better shooter than they really are.
And then we have the PCC guys, the guys who brought rifles to a pistol match. That
Yeah,
usually those guys are at the top if they know what they're doing.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, I think
So
the combined result is it just
Hmm.
make it look more sexy and bragging rights.
I know.
Yeah. All right, so you said that you made GM 2 weeks ago, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, big
Um,
congrats.
did you feel like you were shooting like a GM already before you became a GM?
I did. Yeah.
Why is that?
One would have been more at major matches.
Mm,
My scores, I was keeping up with grandmasters,
hmm
so it was one of those. Okay, I have to be at least kind of shooting at that level to be keeping up with them. A lot of the well, so I think I have three majors under my belt this year so far. Area 5 is coming up, and then Area 3, and then I'll be at nationals at the end of October. But my first major was at the Ohio Buckeye Blast in Marengo, Ohio, where Carry Optics National was, or I'm sorry, Factory got nationals. Um, and I came in second in open and second overall to John Vlieger, who's a Grandmaster GM. Granted, he had maybe a couple stages that he shot in worse weather conditions than I did, but I still had a lot of stages I also shot in the rain too. So um, I shot 97% to him, but then
mm,
also beat a lot of the other Grandmasters in PCC and Carry Optics. So for a little bit now, I've been hovering in that area. So I definitely felt I knew I was getting close. It was just a matter of making sure you shoot the classifiers like you're shooting a match. And I try to not treat classifiers with that hero or zero mentality, and actually shoot them how I would shoot if this was a match. Hopefully it's a better representation of where my skill level is at, because if everybody can get lucky and hook up on a stage and just rip one, and but can you be consistent enough to do that time and time again? And so I didn't want to be one of those guys, one of those paper GMs that would go to a big match and then just get smoked by everybody. Um, so I tried to shoot classifiers. I think I would have made GM sooner. We shot the 24 series classifiers, I think, in before the end of 2024, but that's when they were all jacked up and the high hit factors weren't accurate at all. Because there'd be a couple of stages that I would get done with, and it's like, all right, maybe it wasn't a GM run, but it was definitely a mid 92% run. And we look at the score, and it was like high D class, and you're like,
mm.
no, it isn't. And then we end up finding out later down the road that the 24 series were really messed up. The high hit factors were calculated wrong, and then they were just redone not too long ago. So then that's why at Pips 2 weeks ago
Hmm.
we ran the 24 series again, because now they had supposedly fixed that, and then I made GM. So I think I'd have made it a little bit sooner, had those classifiers not mathematically been messed up. But everything happens for a reason, and I'm still okay making it now.
Yeah, man. I forgot which classifier specifically it was, but damn, if I remember the number, yeah, I don't remember the classifier number, but
It's
I
a 24
noticed,
series.
yeah, it was the 24 series where I noticed that there was this guy that I was shooting with, and he had like a bunch of Charlies, and he got a master class on it. And I'm just
Yep.
like, but then I remember when I did that classifier like last year, and I had almost the same result as him, but it was a high B class run. So I
Okay.
was like, what the fuck? But all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't done classifier for a while now, so
Sure.
and I haven't been following it, so yeah, yeah, but that's good to know though.
Yeah. The 24 series have been fixed. They were just really messed up because they were. I think I could be wrong. I don't think those series of classifiers were. I don't think the data to establish high hit factors were derived from shooters shooting it. I
Hmm.
think I think it was the first series of classifiers where USPSA used an equation to come to arrive at a high hit factor, and it was just off. So was kind of one of those. They fixed it. What I was a little bummed about though is it actually drug my high percentage down by a couple percentages, and I kind of felt like, well, if you're acknowledging that the classifiers weren't correct,
Hmm.
then I kind of feel like they should have just scrubbed them, and everybody that had shot them while they were messed up should have gone back to their percentages, where they were currently at, and not had been penalized for shooting classifiers that they messed up on. And then so my scores for them still kind of counted because my percentage went down by a little bit, but then they fixed them. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, all right, so the next question is, who were your biggest influencer? Well, not influencer, influence or mentor when you first started USPSA?
yeah, the local guys at my club would be would have had the most impact. Just giving you advice and stuff. I've never taken a class
Hmm.
from anybody. I would use, I would watch instructors, some of their maybe explanations of things, and take that info and just apply it. I I definitely, I think I'd probably say Ben Stoger was one of somebody I probably would that I listen to more, to just try, because I really like his, regardless of how some people may feel about him. I don't think you can take away the fact that he's probably one of the best teachers.
Hmm.
And I think what really makes his teaching ability very good is his ability to not overcomplicate something.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of instructors out there that are good instructors, but I think a lot of them have a lot of, they do this too much, and there's too much word salad that goes into it. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, this isn't rocket science. This isn't we're not talking about complicated things. So why are, I think some guys just try to make it sound complicated, just sell something. But I've always appreciated Ben's approach, where it's just like, here's what you need to do, and go practice it. This isn't hard to do. It's not rocket science, and get after it. So, but yeah, I never took any classes, never really felt like I needed to. Just me personally, my personality is, I've just always thought, well, somebody before me had to figure this out, or they did figure it out. There's no reason that I can't also figure it out and arrive to the same conclusion that some of these other people have. So it definitely helps hearing from really good shooters. You take nuggets of information, and oh, that makes sense to me, and then go and apply it to your practice.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about Ben Steger. And one thing that I like about Ben Steger and his group so much is that what they teach is like the total opposite of what a lot of regular instructor would teach. Because I didn't start seeing improvement on my shooting until I started watching like Ben Steger and his group.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when I first got into shooting, I was learning about the sight focus, learning about depth gripping with both hands,
Yeah.
and shooting slowed, and trying to slow down, get your hits and all that stuff. So that's why I appreciate Ben Steger them so much, is because they're teaching it in a way where it's so simple to understand, and
Yeah.
also they make you think, because their teaching is like the total opposite of what these NRA instructor would teach you at your
Right.
particular classes and stuff.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think most people are visual learners, hands-on learners. So if you can explain something to them that's not complicated, and then show them, and then really good teachers are people that can teach you, but you are the one that had to learn something on your own, or you have to, good teachers help you experience what they're trying to teach you, so then that you can better learn that, rather than just trying to talk to you about it. So no, he's definitely one of the best instructors. I'm just not a drama guy, so sometimes their group has too much drama for me. But other than that, their teaching methods I'm 100% behind. But some of the drama that goes with it, it's like, oh, okay, there's where I'm gonna bow out. But him, Ben, and Joel Park, they just do a very good job at explaining it simply and without word salad and trying to make something appear to be more complicated. One of the things that I always try to stay focused on or think about is the people that are the intelligent people. It doesn't take a genius to make something complicated. It usually takes a very smart person to actually be able to dummy it down to layman's terms and then explain it simply. So and but it can take an idiot to make it complicated.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think one of the things people really appreciate about them is that yeah, especially Ben, he's not afraid to call people out. And
Yep,
especially in this industry, when you do that, you burn bridges and there's
you do.
there's not a lot of money for sponsorship. So people they're not willing to call out because they
Right,
want to burn bridges.
right, right. Yeah, and some people are just, they want to be friends with everybody, and you try to be friends with everybody, and
Hmm.
you end up being not very liked by everybody.
But then I think there's a difference between being a friend and telling the truth. Because in my opinion, me and Christian, we always have this talk where I say that honest people are always the good friend.
They
Because
are.
yeah, even though their honesty might make them sound like a piece of shit, but
Yep.
they're honest.
For someone to be honest and truthful, that person has to have a level of
Yes.
caring for people and empathy. I don't You don't tell people, usually you're not honest with people and tell them truthful things to be a jerk to them. Like you said, it may come across that way, but I think the people that are honest and truthful actually care about the outcome and care about people more than people that just tell you what you want to hear or tell you the nice thing.
There's a good balance. There's a good level of
There is.
tact. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have some couth and prudence on what to say, when to say.
Mhm.
We can't always be dirty, be dirty Harry in the movies and tell your, chief sergeant to go, f off or something. You're gonna lose your job. But you know, being being truthful, especially when someone asks you to be truthful, finding a very tactful way to honestly tell them something, but not.
I'm sure as a funeral director, you've seen your stories, huh?
Oh yes, nope. It's very yes. Being a funeral director, you have to be very emotion. You have to have a high level of emotional
Mm,
intelligence, because of how much you're dealing with people, and
hmm.
that definitely suits well for me with interactions on a day-to-day basis.
All right, so since we're on the topic of like teaching and instructor stuff, do you see yourself ever becoming an instructor? Since you're also teaching your son how to shoot at the
Yeah.
moment.
I don't see myself teaching at any point. I actually don't think I would make a good teacher, which is kind of contradicting with me teaching my son. Um, but that's kind of the I just don't think I can teach what I've learned well to people, and maybe I can. Some people have told me that I'm a good teacher. It's just not. I don't see it. Um, and it kind of goes into that saying of not, just because I've made grandmaster does not mean that also then would make me a good teacher. There are guys that aren't even master shooters that probably teach better than grandmasters. You look at sports, for example, in football. So some of the greatest football coaches never played football, but their understanding of the game and what has to happen is just so much greater. The knowledge there is just so much greater than sometimes the actual players had that they could teach it. You know, you look at somebody like Nick Saban with Alabama. I could be wrong. I don't think Nick Saban ever played football. If he did, he it wasn't a very profound career he had, and but he's arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time. So I kind of think it's the same way. I just don't view myself as being a good teacher. If somebody asks me, I'll try to give them a good tip or something, but I'm also not somebody to just walk up and give unsolicited advice to people too, because I'm not a fan of that. So I try to not do things to people that annoy me.
I think it takes a lot of humility to be able to say that because a lot of people think that if you're really good at something, you should be really good at teaching it. But one
Yeah,
one of the constant things that we talk about is that teaching and being very skilled at something are two very different things. Teaching is a
yeah,
is very much a skill set in and of itself, and
right.
teaching your child there's a little bit of leeway with that.
A little bit.
But teaching somebody who's paying you,
Yeah,
it's different.
yeah. Just right. Yeah, I just don't think I'd make a good teacher in a group setting and be able to make people feel like they've gotten something for their money. But always willing to share information or how I arrived to a certain conclusion, because a lot of what we do, not just shooting, life in general, there's a lot of ways to arrive at the same point with different with the same outcome, but how you got there was different. And I think sometimes people, Joel Park had a really good take on this, where he said people can become class junkies, where you just attend as many classes as you can, but then you end up never really learning anything, rather than maybe only attend one or two classes a year, but then really focus on implementing the things that made the most sense to you, and what that things that you find work for you. I think too many people just don't do enough self-reflecting, or they just get nervous that, well, if I don't do exactly what this guy who's a grandmaster said, I won't make grandmaster, rather than um, finding what works for you, and not being afraid to try different things. Drills are a good example. People will ask all the time, well, what kind of drill are you running? And the drills that I run are drills that I made up on my own. I don't run any drills that were so I just took a little bit of nuggets from other drills and created my own. I just One of the drills that I like to run is a really fast movement, where I'm moving the entire time, but then I'm also having to make very wide transition, because that's where a lot of time, uh, splits generally are not where you're losing time to people, especially once you start getting into the M classes and the GM classes. We can all shoot fast splits. So it's your movement and your transitions, and having that mental focus going into that next target sooner than the next guy. So one of the drills that I just do, all because I just look at it as, if I can gain a tenth of a second on a guy on every single stage, that adds up over the course of the entire match. But that was a really hard hurdle for me to actually mentally get over, because you you want to see results sooner, and shooting's a marathon, and not a lot of people can put that mental focus and diligence into shooting an entire match. I kind of liken golf to shooting, where you've just got to look at every stage. That's your next hole. You're not playing one day of golf tournament. You are playing 4 days of golf, and it's just the consistency. I don't need to make 9 birdies in one day, but I need to be consistently doing well over 4 days, and that's how you win. And that's how you win matches too. Is treating every stage as its own thing. You let what happened on previous stages, good or bad, you just let it go, and then you do what is necessary and what needs to be done for that stage that you are currently shooting, and you just have to be mentally tough to do that all day on a 1 day match or at a nationals over 3 days.
Yeah, and I think it was Tim Herron who was saying that, even at a grandmaster level, as long as you can stay consistent at like a point 0.2 split, that's fine at grandmaster level. And like Matt Pranka was saying that, it's everything that you do when you're not shooting, which is
Yes,
actually really what wins.
it is. Because if you can move on a target with a point 0.2 split, but as you're moving, you set yourself up into the position where as soon as you're done engaging that target, you swing over and you are now already in position for that. That's where you saved your time rather than splitting on that target, with a 10 split and then running over to the next target with a 10 split. You'll spend more time doing that than blending the position. But it's an art because there are times where it's like, okay, I have to, if I do a 20 split on this target, I will lose time. That target needs to be a 13 split, and really, haul ass. One of the ways that I like to break down stages sometimes is find that, when there's certain stages where it's like, okay, through this port I can see two targets that are relatively close, and then there's two pieces of steel that are moderately, they're not close, but they're not far, they're moderate distance. And some people will say, well, if I can already see them here, I'm going to take them, which could sometimes be the case. But sometimes the way that I end up deciding on not doing something like that is, okay, I'm going to be coming off of this position, and these three targets it's a really fast position. And then moving into this port, if I just stay in that fast mode and only take the two targets, and then when I get to the end of the stage, there's two longer pieces of paper. Well, guess what? I have to throttle control and change my momentum of how I'm shooting the stage. Those aren't targets I'm just going to be ripping on. So once I get to this position, if I have to take a couple targets at a more controlled pace, that's when it makes sense to me to shoot your steel. So I like to try and keep stages inconsistent of, okay, all these targets right here, these are fast. I should rip at these, and try and help. The less I have to think about doing something on a stage, the better it's going to go. So if I can kind of break it down that way to my advantage and just know through this section it's just all speed, and then I bring a little bit of throttle control in on these certain parts of the stage.
Damn. Well, you answer like most of the question I was gonna ask you. So I'm
Well,
just
you
gonna
can still ask me because it's something else. I might have a different idea or a different example.
no, you answered them pretty good already. So but I'm gonna freestyle some questions since you and I are on the same boat
Yeah,
teaching our kid. So speaking of split, so today this morning I actually went to the range with my son to make him have faster split because his usual splits are is like 1.4 to 1.7, right? But we
yeah,
were able to get it down to zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.7.
sure.
Um, damn, what was I gonna ask you? What was the question I was gonna ask you? So the question that I was gonna ask you is, w- do you think it's necessary for our boys to have faster splits at their age, especially when their hands are so small?
Yep.
Obviously, they won't be able to control their recoil like grown men until they're teenager.
Yeah.
Do you think it's necessary for our boys to have faster splits?
I do. I still think it's helpful because they're still getting to experience and learn that what throttle control feels like and what it means to throttle control. And actually, I'd be interested if you have the same findings I did with my son. So when he on closer targets shoots um, predictively rather than aiming the gun reactively, his groupings are actually better. When
Mm-hmm.
he has a faster split, he's actually more accurate than when
Mm-hmm.
he tries to take his time
Yes.
and be more conscious about it, because he's now just kind of letting go of the thought of shooting and just letting the process of shooting the gun, let the mechanics of the gun happen, let the return happen, and just shoot the gun and not think about aiming and shooting the gun. So yeah, I think teaching them faster splits is important because it's not a disadvantage, and again, they're just learning what that feeling of going fast and having that throttle control will feel like.
I agree with that 100% because that's what I've been telling my son because I noticed that even if the target is at 5 yard, right? And if
Yeah.
he's taking his time to like smoothly pull the trigger and try to hit that
Yep.
bullseye, he missed
Yep.
because he's overthinking. So I
Yeah.
told him to like, hey, don't overthink. As soon as the dot lands where you're looking at, just pull the trigger. Don't even
Yep.
think about the trigger pull. Don't even think about a smooth pull or whatever.
No.
Just yank that trigger as long as the gun's not moving and you will hit it because if you just stand there and shoot slowly, you're the chance of you missing is very high because you're
Right.
overthinking. And I think that's
Yes.
one of I kind of took this I kind of took the approach of how Ben Steger is teaching his student for my son because I never talk about shooting slow or shooting fast. I just tell him as soon as the dot hit lands where you're looking at, pull the trigger right away.
Yep.
And I noticed that that helps a lot. So I feel like instructors that teaches new shooter, I don't think they should talk about like, okay, you got to shoot slow or you got to shoot fast.
Right.
Don't mention those two words. Just say as soon as your sight lands on where you're looking at, just pull the
Mhm.
trigger. And I think that helped my son a lot
It
because I
does.
know that he's shooting faster than me when I first got into USPSA because when I first got into USPSA, I didn't start shooting fast until I actually got into the sport. Before I got into the sport, it was just all about bullseye shooting, and I
Right.
noticed a big difference between my son shooting and me when I first started. So I
Sure.
agree with you 100% about like the split stuff.
Yeah. No, and it's a good confidence booster. One of the few weeks ago when I did the stage designs for PIPs, and one of the stages I designed was a three per stage. I really like three per stages once in a while. They're fun to shoot. Um, and the some of the closer targets, Leo just ripped at him, and afterwards he was like, boy, that felt good, and it was a little bit of a good confidence booster for him. And again, when he just shot the gun without thinking about aiming the gun or his trigger pull, his groupings were great. They were all center alpha hits, and yeah, his misses come from overthinking, because once you start thinking about aiming the gun and the gun going off, you're gonna dip.
Hmm.
You're gonna prematurely react to the gun going
Yes.
off, and then therefore you get that's where that flinching or the dip comes in, rather than again reacting to the gun going off rather than thinking about the gun going off, which is hard to do. It's not as easy to mentally um, let go of that thought process, because you've got this little hand grenade in
Hmm.
your hand going off. So it's I definitely sympathize with people that are having a hard time letting go of that thought of the gun going off rather than just letting it go off. Sometimes I've told people before, we had a couple new shooters one time, and he was having a lot of misses, and he said, I've just got to slow down. And I said, that's not why you're missing.
Hmm.
Don't slow down, because that actually will be counterintuitive. It won't help you. That you slowing down is not why you're missing that target. It's it's your focus on that target and the diligence you're giving that. You're not putting your focus there and then just shooting the gun. You're trying to aim the gun. And but it's like I've told people before, you could be the strongest person in the entire world and just grip that gun with all your strength. That gun is still going to recoil. You will still have muzzle rise. Just let it do what it's going to do, no matter what. You can't control that aspect. So let it do its thing, and worry about what you can control, like looking at the center of the target and staying focused that way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that 100%. You know, like I told my son that don't fight the recoil because even
Mhm.
your dad can't fight the recoil. You just have to let the gun
Yep.
come back.
Let it
As
do its
long
thing.
as, yep, yep,
So it's fun. It's fun watching them pick up on it. Leo's getting better at not thinking about the
mm,
shot as much. I've got a MMP competitor on order for him that I'm going to move him into now, because that little Kimber he's is using is
yeah.
just it's not a fun gun to shoot at all. But he's learned what I've wanted him to learn from shooting that, and so now it's time. And now he's big enough that he can shoot a full size M&P with an Apex trigger on it and stuff. So we've got that on order.
Yeah, like my opinion is because right now my son is shooting the Canic rifle, which is a full
Sure.
size. Obviously he's not gonna have the proper grip on it, but I told him that, and he was complaining about that. But I told him that if you could shoot a full size without proper grip, good. Imagine when you turn teenager and you're able to
Yeah.
actually grip the gun correctly,
Yeah.
you will be way better. So, yeah, that's why I started my son out with the with a full size, even though it was too big for his hand, and
Sure.
his finger kind of struggled reaching all the way to a trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and like for Leo, the I would still say the M&P technically is still too big for him,
Hmm.
but he can safely operate it now. The problem 2 years ago when he started is he couldn't even get he couldn't even get part of the center of his palm on the
Mm.
back strap with that. He was
How
having
old is he?
He's 9.
Oh.
Same
So
age.
he was having to compromise his grip too much on the full size guns. So then he basically ended up he had no hand behind the back strap. So it was like, all right, that definitely can't happen yet. So but he went through a growth spurt, and but yeah, he was 7 when I started him in the indoor stuff, and the Kimber provided the ability for him to start learning some of the things I wanted to teach him. But he's big enough now to at least safely operate a full size gun. But like you said, even though his hands aren't still big enough to really control it or grip it like how the three of us would be able to. But
So
yeah,
when are we gonna
I'm envious. Once these little
Yeah.
guys get their hands big, once their hands are big
Mhm.
enough, and they're 75 pounds soaking wet at 12 years old, running around like lightning bolts on the field of course. I'll be envious, because they're gonna do really well.
So when are we gonna push for our rimfire division for USPSA?
Never,
Rimfire,
man.
yeah,
Never.
Never.
It's a waste of time, man. Because I feel like if a 9-year-old kid could shoot 9 millimeter, there's really no point of rimfire at all. There's really no point. Because I feel like I think anyone, not anyone, but like um at least a 9-year-old or 8-year-old could handle nine as long as they were taught the proper like technique and everything. So
mm-hmm.
that's why I didn't have my son start with the 22. I jumped straight to nine just
Yep.
because I want him to get comfortable with the recoil. Because I feel like if he was to start with a BB gun or 22, he's gonna build up really bad habits, and then he's gonna think that or he's gonna quit too easily. I feel like, okay, well, this gun's too hard to shoot. I want to go back to the 22 because I haven't shot the 22 for the first time today, and he said he loved it. He preferred that one, but I'm like, dude, but that gun doesn't build skills. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree with you for all the same points, Koo. You take anybody out to the range that's new to shooting, and you let them shoot a 9 millimeter, and then they get to shoot it, or vice versa. But if
Hmm.
they get to shoot a 22, of course they're going to have more fun shooting that. I have more fun
Yep.
going out to the range and plinking with the 22 than I do a 9 millimeter. But their ability to handle that recoil and be comfortable with that recoil at a young age, it only is going to better them down the road.
How's your son? Okay, so one thing that my son is struggling with the most is racking the slide because of the recoil spring. So I have to like put a 11-pound spring or maybe a nine. I forgot
Yeah,
how heavy the recoil spring is, and I noticed that I wish that it would be a heavier recoil spring just so that it doesn't the gun doesn't fly back so much. But
sure.
he can't rack anything that's like heavier than 11 pounds. So. How what recoil spring do you put in your son gun?
You know, well, I've got a spring here. What does this Kimber say?
What model Kimber is your son shooting right now?
The Micro 9.
The
Oh,
little ass 1911,
It's
man.
I
That
I
shit
I,
really?
kicks.
I will admit it is not a fun gun to shoot at all. It's zero. So
You started him off on hard mode, huh?
yeah, I'm really proud that he's weathered that gun for 2 years because it is not fun at all. This doesn't say how heavy of a recoil spring it is for the Kimber, but I mean it's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 10 or 11.
Mm, okay.
Especially for it being a shorter gun.
Yeah.
The lighter springs, it only worsens the recoil impulse on the really small guns. Um, yeah, I mean, Lee, he had a little bit of a hard time with it. But I think sometimes a little bit more of his problem earlier on was not his the strength was there to do it. It was that timidness, or it was kind of scared. And not to pick on women, but you hand women a gun. What's the like when they try to rack the slide? It's like they're
Mm,
scared to rack it. It's just they're nervous. They're timid by it, rather than it's like grab that son of a gun and you know I know some people that will hold. Well, there's some really old FUDs 2011 1911 guys that are like, oh, you got to walk the slide home. It's like me pulling this
yeah.
thing back and
Hmm.
letting go is not as damaging as shooting the gun.
Hmm.
So I think some of it for him was just getting over that timidness of just pull that sucker back as hard as you can and let it go. You don't have to do anything once you've pulled it back. You don't have to do anything but let it go. Um, and I kind of had to help teach him, to use both.
Hmm.
Sometimes he just stand there and hold it and think he can only move this arm, and then he's not applying any forward pressure with this arm. So it's like it took a little bit of like, no, think about this as you're trying to push both of these objects together. Push
Hmm.
into the gun at the same time you're pulling back with the gun. Use some momentum and technique to operate it rather than just pure brute, strength.
It's funny that you brought that up, about the woman part because my son he would like rack it like he will hold the dot like this, but he
Yep.
would go forward, and every time when he does that, it jams the gun. So I told him to
Yeah.
like, dude, just rack it like a man. You just make sure
Let
your
it rip.
hand go back. If your hand doesn't go back, then you're not racking it correctly.
Yep.
So that helped him a lot. But yeah,
Sure.
I told him, the push pull. So push with your dominant hand, then
Yeah.
pull with your support and just let go.
And
You're not
another
gonna
good
break the
way to
gun.
think about it, I just thought about it now too, but like you just said, when you want your hand you want to have so much momentum going back towards you that if you slipped off the slide, you'd hit yourself.
Yeah,
It'd be like it's like follow through.
yeah.
You need that follow through, and it's like you are not going to break or damage the gun, and yeah, just have that follow through, and you know pretend you're mad at one of your siblings
Yep.
or something, and
And
rack the slide.
Am I wrong for telling to rack it like a man?
No,
All
We're
right.
we're not going to
no,
cancel you.
no, no. We, men, we need to make men great again and women great again.
Yes.
Mm. Mhm.
We need to make both great again. Um, yeah, I was thinking of, but other than the recoil, uh, he'll just get better with it as he becomes more
Mhm.
comfortable with it, I think. Because when I got my LO gun the other day, I did a chrome finish, hard chrome finish on it, and that it locks up really really tight. It take even for me, I've got to actually put some force into it right now. It'll break in after a few hundred rounds, but Leo wanted to look at it, so I was like, yeah, here, look at it, and right away, boom, he did it because he applied that
Mhm.
technique of push, pull, and so he'll just get more comfortable with it as he does it. But yeah, rack it like a man, don't rack it like a bitch.
All right. So you answered most of my question. I do have one more question, and then Christian will ask his question. So the last question for my part I have for you is, how has USPSA changed your view on firearms and training?
It's changed my view of firearms in their we get to have we're it's an opportunity to have a lot more fun with them rather than this prepper doomsday mindset of I've only got the guns in case the zombie apocalypse happens, or it's like, because the likelihood of anything like that ever happening is super slim. So it's like, oh, I want to enjoy these and have fun. So USPSA has provided that, definitely for me. I definitely abuse guns a lot. I look at them as now more of just a tool that can be replaced, like a drill. You use the drill to build things, and the day that the motor in it gives out, or you go buy a new one. And that's the same I kind of look at with the gun. And USPSA has been very good in terms of the training part of it, rather than you've got a lot of there's nothing USPSA does, in my opinion, that negatively impacts you as a shooter.
Mm.
You've got a lot of some of the tactical guys out there that go, yeah, but in a real gunfight, you're not hiding behind cover, but it's like that's not what you're training for. Tactics and shooting your gun are different types of training, and that's why a lot of times you see. We used to have a handful of state troopers that would come out to the range sometimes and shoot Wednesday nights, and they don't anymore. Why? Because they get their asses kicked. And it's even the same with some of the military guys. You've got Navy SEALs that'll come out and think they're Billy Badass, and they might be in other things, but they come out and they get their clock cleaned by C and B shooters. Not picking on those guys, but it's a different skill set, and being able to shoot the pistol efficiently, accurately, very fast. It's like, how could that ever be bad in any scenario? Being able to do that confidently should only make you a better citizen who can conceal. If you conceal carry daily, that should only make you a better citizen. If hopefully, but if you never, hopefully you never had to, but if you ever had to use your firearm in a defense situation, there's nothing USPSA does that will negatively impact you. And I don't agree with the thought process of, oh, double tapping targets, paper targets will, when you go to shoot a bad guy, you're just going to shoot two and think. I don't. Your mind is going to be racing, and that adrenaline will you won't. I just don't think that um, is negatively impacting you, and you're just going to sit there and only shoot somebody twice. I think your common sense instincts kick in, and you do what needs to be done, but you're going to do it all that much better and more accurately. In a way, it makes you a safer a concealed carry person because your ability to use that effectively. Um, I would rather take any level competitor shooter, even if they were a D, but they've been shooting USPSA for a couple years. They're going to be far better than that person that goes to get their concealed carry permit, sticks the gun in the drawer, and they never touch it until the end of the year and they shoot their mag through it.
Damn, I agree with you 100% because I listened to this podcast with Mojo Milspec. Have you heard of him, Colin?
I think so.
Okay, so the Mojo Milspec, he could shoot. This guy could shoot. He's a law enforcement guy. This guy could
Yeah,
shoot fast. I think he's very good at shooting, but he doesn't do competition. He doesn't talk anything bad about competition, but
sure.
there's one thing that he said on the podcast where he said that competition could also build bad habits because he had this friend that does competition and then he went out and trained with them, right? So when they
Yep.
had to run back, the competition guy was like holding the gun back like this. He wasn't trying to break the
Oh,
180, and then Mojo was basically saying so competition does kind of build bad habit because competition guys will always think that it's a USPSA game, right? But in my opinion, I think that that's not I disagree with that because like you said, common sense. I don't think that if you're competent enough with a gun in a real gunfight, you obviously not gonna just double tap, or if you gotta run, you're not just gonna keep the gun pointed this way.
right,
You know what I mean? So that's
right.
why I just want to say, I agree
Yeah,
with what you said 100%.
yeah, because maybe them running drills, he did that, but running a drill is you'll be in the framework of not breaking a rule.
Yes.
Whereas I don't think, and I I guess in a way, even if you did run in a real life situation backwards that way, uh, you're I don't know what harm that would do.
Yeah.
Um, because it's not like it's gonna create you become a bigger target for the bad guy, or you become more unsafe because you're doing so. Even if you were in a live fire situation and you ran backwards like this or with the gun the other way, it's kind of like, well, I guess so what? How is that negatively going to impact your ability to stop the threat or get to a safe position?
Yeah,
Uh,
because you're just running, you know what I mean?
yeah, you're just running.
And plus, I feel like a lot of people, especially the tactical guys, I hate to say that, but I think the reason why a lot of tactical guys they don't respect competitor shooters because they will say that we're gaming and because there's rules. But what they don't
Yeah,
understand is that the rules is to keep the game safe and to keep everyone safe. But
right.
imagine if there's no rules.
Oh yeah,
We could shoot whichever way we want. We will be more deadlier than people who never play the game. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I feel like
yeah,
so people don't understand that the rules is just to keep you safe. Just like in boxing, if there's no
yes,
rules, imagine if there's no rule and you got to
yeah,
fight a boxer on the street. The boxer will murder you
right,
easily if there's
right.
no rules.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, I agree with that, and yeah, USPSA is a game.
yeah,
I don't think seeing that, and that's what I think sometimes these guys get, the tactical guys. I've never met somebody who shoots USPSA and has been shooting it for some time and them look at it any other way than it being a game.
yeah.
I've never met a USPSA competitor that yeah, that just doesn't think or is willing to admit that, yeah, this is a game, we're having fun, and there's not bad habits that are going to derive from this. But I think there's just a different. I'm not a vet, but I hate that bro vet mentality. I just hate that mentality. That's with anything. I hate when people just act like because they did something or they were a part of something that somehow gives them special access or ability or kiss my ass kind of mentality because I did this. So there's definitely an ego aspect that these guys just can't fathom. They just can't fathom that they put all this time in the military, and then our two sons are probably out shooting most of those guys. Shoot, I'd feel much more comfortable with my kid having to protect us in a self-defense situation than I probably would most cops.
All right, that's all my question. Christian, go for it. Your
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions here. And so Ku was asking the USPSA related questions. I got a couple in, but now we're going to ask for opinions on things.
Sure.
So these are a little bit more fun. So I got kind of my list. One of the unpopular opinions you had was that you don't run a backup gun, and you think that for your use case, you don't really see a need for the type of shooting that you're doing at the moment. Let me see. So going on with that, let me see. What would you say is something that you see people typically doing wrong when they start getting into shooting?
I think chasing the equipment and
Mm-hmm.
relying on buying the thought
Mm-hmm.
of being able to buy skill rather than um, actually getting better at certain tasks and chasing that next red dot that comes out or the
Mm-hmm.
next new fancy gun that comes out and kind of trying to buy that skill. Setting goals is good. I view the nicer guns in a way as more of a reward. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started out with a polymer M&P. That's what in a 40. That's what I shot limited in, and I told myself I'm not going to buy an actual competition style
Mm-hmm.
gun until I make master in this division with shooting this gun. So chasing skill, trying to buy skill is probably one of them.
I 100% agree with that. I know a lot of guys, they'll say, today I'm carrying the Beretta, next day I'm carrying the Glock,
Yeah.
next day I'm carrying the CZ, next day is the SIG. I'm like,
And I
I
think
know you're
changing
not a good
platforms a
shooter.
lot. Yeah. And I think changing platforms is a lot. There's this guy on YouTube, I don't, or not YouTube, Instagram, and
Hmm.
he might be a really nice guy, but man, do his videos just rub me the wrong way because, and CZ always shares his thing, but he goes to his safe and all of his to his safe and all of his reels and pulls out a different handgun every time that he's going to carry, and then he calls it his passenger princess, so a different kind of rifle that he's going to put in his car. And I'm just like, man, he doesn't know shit because and he's got over six-figure followers on Instagram, and it's just like this guy doesn't know squat because that's actually a negative having all those different platforms you're carrying, and your carry gun should be a very
Hmm.
simple platform that you're comfortable with, and that you carry that, and chasing the performance equipment in competition isn't great, but chasing performance out of your self defense or just your what you would use in a bad situation, that's even worse.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. If I see somebody who has, a different gun that they're carrying every single day, I know,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't really know what you're
No,
doing.
no, they really don't know what they're doing. Or you're Gavin Newsom on the Sean Ryan podcast, and you go, what did that idiot say? He said high capacity magazine clips, and you're just like, God, I haven't
Uh,
listened to it yet, but I hope Sean really grilled his ass.
I
He
don't
said,
think so, man. I think Sean's a little bit too nice.
I know
Yeah.
Gavin's such a turd, he's the turd in a punch bowl at a party.
But since you
uh,
since you guys were oh my bad. But
no, go
quick
ahead.
question. So since you guys were talking about concealed carry and stuff, right? Do you guys think it's safe to carry like a gun that's have competition internals?
No.
No? Ooh, because I do.
De- Depends what you mean by competition internals, I
Okay,
would
so
say.
so like
Okay,
like
sure.
a little bit lighter trigger, lighter, re like your gun could be easily
Mhm.
used for a competition.
Okay. So maybe like a lighter recoil spring, maybe
Yeah.
an apex trigger, or those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I
Okay.
that that's that stuff has become so much more
Mhm.
reliable that I would say now it's that sure. I was thinking more in terms of like, single action 1 pound trigger kind of things. You know, well, I mean, hey, this is probably more drop safe than a P320.
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
More
Or
drop safe than a Cajunized Shadow 2.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But at least I'll admit that.
Yeah, I've for years I've carried my Glock 19 with about like a 3 pound trigger on it.
Yeah,
So probably had like 40, 50,000 rounds. And so took tons of classes with it. That was my daily carry gun. Yeah, and no issues, but it you got to know what you're doing. I wouldn't tell somebody
yeah,
who's new to go ahead immediately drop the weight on that trigger and just start carrying it. Um,
right.
you should be skilled enough to do
Yeah,
that safely.
yeah. Yeah, and it's always hard. Sometimes people will ask, like, well, at what skill level should some shooters, at what point in, if you just took the USPSA classification system, for example, sometimes people will go, well, at what point should I be looking at racier equipment or potentially better equipment geared towards USPSA? Like, what classification do I have to get to? And I mean, I don't know, because maybe you don't shoot classifiers. There's
Mhm.
guys out there that are be open shooters and they're just sandbaggers and they're true they're M's or stuff. But if you just go off, so I think experience probably is your knowledge is probably more useful than maybe your skill level of shooting the gun. Because if you don't know, have the knowledge of the mechanics and the firearm
Mhm.
to a good level, that's probably more why when you could upgrade or do something different than your actual ability to shoot the gun. Maybe I don't know.
That actually segues really nicely into the next question I had, which is, maybe you see somebody who's they've been coming to matches and their skill just isn't really improving. They're not really doing much better. What do you think is maybe one or two things that really holds people back from becoming better shooters if they are actively trying?
I think one of the things that holds people back is that mental unlocking
Mhm.
of trusting to run the gun fast. And in a way you're almost kind of you're allowing your mind to, you're not losing control, but you're allowing your mind to let the gun be subconsciously out in control rather than
Mhm.
consciously in control of it. Because a lot of us can shoot, you know fast splits standing somewhere, but that ability to, for me at least, it was a mental unlocking to go faster and really just realize that you can push your abilities. That's probably one of them that holds them up. And I think the other thing is just people's their overall, what they are wanting to get out of the game. I think most people are capable of, for sure, achieving A class. It's M and GM that I think separates. It's just kind of that next tier. I wouldn't don't want to ever say that anybody could become GM, because some people might just not be able to put put those skills, all the skills together to make that happen. So I think what holds a lot of people back is just they may just not, maybe making M or GM is not really something they're even interested in. So they kind of just get comfortable and become complacent and content with where they're at, rather than actively trying to get better. So I think most people can get better pretty quickly when they want to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. There's absolutely a mental game when it comes to that shooting part. And this year when I started really getting to the competition shooting stuff, I've been watching like a ton of like Ben Stager and like Hwansik Kim stuff, and I didn't really understand that vision is such a core part of it, and
Yeah.
we overlook it.
Yep.
And that was nothing. That was something that I was never taught in my shooting career. And once I started seeing that part, I realized that, oh, what I'm seeing,
Sure.
and being able to register what those sites are doing and knowing when to
Sure.
pull that shot, that really changed how I've been shooting.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes a good habit, or just something I built in to try and create a good habit when I'm shooting a stage is when the RO says make ready, and then right when the RO says are you ready, I mentally quickly tell myself center, center, alpha, alpha. Just just trying to remind myself where the focus needs to be. It's like just that brief moment before that beep goes off. Just quickly mentally go center, center, alpha, alpha, because that's where I want to be every single time. Um, and I actually even do a little hand thing. I don't. You probably can't ever tell in my videos, but like when my hands are on my side and I go center, center, alpha, alpha, I actually move my hand like this to also just try and engage. There's a couple golfers that have these really weird flinches before. Basically, your what's the word I'm trying to look for? You're engaging the action to perform the rhythm. So it's the same with some of these guys. Colin Maxon, I think, is one of them in golf, and he does a really unconventional, weird twitch right before he begins his swing, because it just puts him in a state of mind where then he can just let the rhythm of what he practices take over. So I tried to that my intent for moving my hand like that when I say center, center, alpha, alpha to myself, it's almost like a twitch to put myself in that last minute mindset and then let the rhythm take over.
I've actually been doing that too. I've been changing the way I've been shooting, especially starting this year. And so, as I've been watching more high level shooters shoot, they always talk about how you really need more support hand pressure, and that's something I
Yeah.
wasn't doing before, where I was trying to do balanced pressure between the two hands. And
Yep.
so when I started doing that, I was shooting better. And so, but I've built this grip for so many years that it's pull, grab, and then crush with both hands.
Sure.
And so what I had to start doing is I had to, before that run, I tense this hand and I loosen this hand so that way my mind just remembers grab it, crush, and then just light pressure. And I've
Yeah.
absolutely been doing that too. It's really been helping me.
Yeah. And I think if you can find a method on your own, that'll even help you all the more, rather than copy. When again, it's like when an instructor take the nugget that the instructor gives, but being able to find a way to make it yours and tweak something and make it yours, it just gives you, the shooter, that much more confidence, because it's like this is my technique I came up with. You've done it enough and seen that it works, and it's just like, this is mine, this is the conclusion that I arrived at. It's working. And it's my thing that I developed, and it just kind of helps, I think, with your mental confidence, because this is very, very much a mental sport, especially when you're trying to target focus and all that stuff too. Target focusing is all mental.
Hmm.
Other than you physically using your eyes to look there,
Hmm.
that's it. It is all mental. You looking at the center of that target.
All right. Last question for me. Tell us one of your worst, either like a gun store or gun range or a match experiences. Tell us a fun story.
Um, actually, this story is a childhood story. So, one of my worst experiences with a firearm was I was just kind of I was a kid, new, learning. I shouldn't even have even been touching it, but it was a semi-automatic rifle, and I made the mistake of not dropping the magazine first.
Ooh.
So I racked it back, racked
Hmm.
the slide back, saw the round go out. It's like, all right, it's clear. I see that the chamber's clear. I let go, and then that chambered the round, but I made the mistake of not dropping the magazine, and then I just went to do a dry pull to put it away, and bang, it went
Ooh.
off. And my two little sisters were in the next door room, and where just put it this way, had they been standing up, what they would have gotten hit.
Mm.
So that was a very scary thing for me. So that kind of I might be hyper sometimes when I show new people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
firearms. I sometimes I think can come across as hyper sensitive over safety, but that comes from a place of um, something that turned
Mm-hmm.
out to be a good learning lesson and nobody got hurt, but very easily somebody could have gotten hurt. So, I'm just a big proponent of is that gun's loaded all the time,
Mm.
and it's just got to be treated as such.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's my
Well,
that's my worst one. I don't know if I have a lot of like you know gun gun store. Most of my gun purchases, I already had it made up in my mind what I was buying, so
mm.
I just kind of got I got to skip the process of the Cabela's floods trying to sell you or tell you something, and you're like, again, you try to be nice, but it goes back to most of those guys don't know squat.
Mm. No.
It's just their job, and they're just telling you what the sales rep for the gun company told them. So not nothing. They're not bad people. It's just
Mhm.
you get to I like to do a lot of research before I usually have my mind made up on what I'm buying before I buy it, uh, and do it that way. Just skip the sales pitch process of being shown something.
Yeah, whenever my wife goes with me to like a sporting goods store or something, like I'll be shopping and then I'll hear some salesman trying to sell a lady like a J-frame
Yeah,
revolver saying that's the best for women and I'll be like
I
there's a
know.
vein just like twitching in my head. She's
I
like,
get it.
"Don't say anything."
Yeah, I had I had an incident. My wife had never gotten to shoot my open gun since I had it done, so I had a free pass to one of our ranges here in Rochester, and I was like, well, let's make a date out of it. We'll let you shoot the open gun. We'll go grab some dinner, and one of the guys on the line at this gun range my wife is somebody who just give her some information on what what she needs to do, but then just kind of like shut up and let her do it for a little bit, not be. And so I step back, and the range guy comes up, and he's trying to tell her some things and techniques, and I'm just sitting there, kind of taking it in, like, all right, we'll see what this guy's got to say. And one of the guys that knows me well, he comes in, and he tells the guy, he goes, that's Colin's wife. Yeah, don't tell her how to shoot. If he'll tell her what to do if he needs something. That was kind of funny.
But speaking of wife, don't you feel like okay, so this is what I'm experiencing. Don't you feel like sometimes our wife tend to rather listen to someone else than their own husband? Because I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like I have a hard time teaching my wife, but if it was a random person,
yeah,
whether it's a woman or a male, they could like they would try to teach her and then she would listen to them instead.
yeah, yeah. Because it's not you or me telling her
Yeah.
to do something, but it's even think back to sometimes when I was a kid or with kids, and if my mom and dad told me,
True.
"Hey, don't do this. This is
Yep.
not a good thing to do." It's like, man, you're my, you didn't want to hear it from your mom and dad, but some old guy at church who you don't know very well tells you the same thing, and you're like, "Oh, that guy is smart." He, you know, so I. I just think it's a little bit it's just a little bit of that. It's,
Hmm.
I don't want my husband, well, the hard thing I have with I'd like her, the kids are still little. So right now, it's not something if she does competitive shooting at some point, it will be when all the kids are doing it and then everybody's old enough to be doing it. Then, and in a way it's, I feel bad for her, but as a, when you're a mom and the kids are little, mom is the most important figure
Hmm.
at that time. Um, and then as a dad, we're still involved, but you know, the mom definitely has to make more. My wife definitely has to make more sacrifices than I do, and sometimes I give her props. I feel bad sometimes that, but at the same time, it's kind of like that's where she's at right now, and that's what the kids need. And but she's made the comment of, well, I don't know if I ever want to compete because you're a grandmaster and I'm never going to do that. So there's this like intimidation of it, but it's like, but I wasn't, and I had to learn. And it's like, I've even said, well, you can go squat on another squad and you don't even have to shoot with me. But yeah, it'll just be it. I think it'd be easier, Koo, if especially if more wives were doing it.
Yep.
Then they could have a ladies squad.
That'd be fun. But yeah, that's all the questions I had.
All right. Well,
Well, I
so
had
that's
fun.
yeah.
Sorry, I sometimes ramble, so
No,
hopefully it
no,
wasn't too
No.
bad.
you're the guest. That's what you
Hmm.
need to do. Yeah, that's our main goal is to have the guests talk as much as possible. So yeah. But anyway, since that's all the question, Colin, where can the viewers find you?
The only My only social media that I have is Instagram. Um, and I guess I do YouTube shorts too. But they're both tactical mortician is kind of my tag, just because with being a funeral director and owning a funeral home and it's a very community involvement. I try to keep my shooting hobby separate from my professional life, just because I not everybody in the world is gonna think shooting sports is safe or fun. So I try to just keep that separate. So if you search Colin Maxon on anything, you probably won't find anything, but Tactical Mortician is on Instagram.
All right, I will leave a link to your Instagram in the description.
Well, sure.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have. Hey,
Yeah.
Colin, we appreciate you, joining us tonight to talk with us.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me, and we'll hopefully see you guys soon. And are either you guys shooting the Minnesota section?
I am.
You are?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're on the same squad.
I'm staff.
Oh, I thought I saw your name
So
on squad 11, but okay.
no, I'm staff. I try to work especially the local match. I kind of view that since we live in Minnesota and it's our state
Yep.
match, try and help out with that. So I'll shoot staff, but I'll still see you out there.
Yep.
All right.
All right. You two have a good night, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you
stop
too.
recording right now.